Good morning. So we're here to talk about a change that's going on in the 1.5 trillion, roughly, meat industry. It's subtle. You might not have noticed it if you're not a regular reader of corporate mission statements and press releases, as I am, if your life is somewhat more interesting. Just kidding, I read all of your press releases, both of you. Cargill, one of the world's biggest producers of beef and poultry, has rebranded their meat solutions as Cargill Protein. Tyson Foods, the biggest US meat company, called itself in its most recently quarterly report a leader in protein. Maple Leaf Foods wants to be the most sustainable protein company on earth. And part of what's going on here is the boom that we've seen in meat alternative products has got these companies that are the world's biggest suppliers of beef, poultry, and pork rethinking what it is that they are, asking themselves what they want to be in a very fundamental way. And so we have here two of the biggest. We have Christy Lebor, who is here representing JBS. We have Eric Christianson, who's here representing Perdue Farms. And we're going to talk about corporate strategy. We're going to talk about economics. We may talk about farmers' conflicted feelings in the Burger King drive-thru. Christy, let's start with you. JBS, you are the world's biggest producer of meat. Can you give the audience a bit here of a snapshot of what JBS does, what it means to be a leader in protein, and how that is or is not different than being a leader in meat?
Absolutely. So for those of you who don't know JBS, we're the world's largest protein company, and we would like to say we're actually a food company. And that's pretty meaningful to us because we're actually the world's second largest food company. We're $50 billion in annual revenue. We're number 1 in beef, number 1 in chicken globally. We're number 2 in pork globally, and we participate in a lot of other segments. So, I'm imagining that most of the people in the audience here are from the US, American. JBS isn't necessarily a household name at the corporate level here, but around the world, we're very well known. And to us, we've made a very declarative statement that we are in food, and around the world, we are in other categories. So you can imagine that we're seeking to grow in all ways to achieve our mission statement of being the best in food. So I think today's topic and this week's topic is incredibly relevant for what our future may be.
So Eric, what do you think? Perdue Farms is strongly associated with chicken. You're one of the biggest US chicken companies. Can you introduce Perdue a bit and maybe give a sense of how malleable you feel like this term protein is?
Yeah. Well, Jacob, thanks for giving Perdue a plug already for our brand. It's just joking. Thank you. Long before the protein vernacular was in vogue, we cast a vision for our company to be the most trusted name in premium protein. And we were pretty clear about that. Most trusted name meaning, we're a company of brands, and premium protein meaning, we want to do things that are worth a little bit more. And we certainly are in multi-protein today. In terms of chicken, we're the number 1 chicken in the fresh case for the United States. So that's a pretty great place to be. But we also have turkey and pork and beef, and all these are on the premium side of things in terms of no antibiotics ever. We were the first to do that. Organic chicken production and leadership in that aspect. Confinement-free pork, with our Coleman business and Nyman Ranch business, and now grass-fed beef with Panorama, a recent acquisition. So the premium side of things is super important for us. But believe it or not, we've actually been in the plant protein business for a long time because we have a part of our company through the vertical integration that is called Perdue Agribusiness. And these guys, work with about 8,500 farmers across the U.S. to grow grains and soybeans. And so the plant protein that is grown there is typically used to convert into animal protein. So we just need to think about it a little bit differently and back it up a little bit, and so that that plant protein can find its way into human protein. So that's our deal. But for us, if another aspect of protein is wanted by consumers, we're going to stand ready to answer it, whether it be chicken, beef, pork, lamb, goat, bison, maybe, who knows. But certainly plants will be a big part of that.
So can you both bring us a bit into the management meetings and what the factors were that have got you interested to expand into this alternatives area and the ways that you're both doing? Christy, walk us through this.
Sure. I should have mentioned JBS already is in plant-based protein. I didn't mention that before, but we have launched a product and soon to be a line of plant-based products down in Brazil under our Ciara Gourmet brand. We're very proud of it. It's doing very well. We're also in plant-based protein in the UK today. So, we've already tested the market in other places. When we look at the US market and we thought about, well, what's next? We really look at the consumer. And when you look at sort of the consumer trends in what is good for you, what is health and wellness, you see that almost every decade, there's a new version of what good for you is. So, maybe in the 80s it was, absence of negatives, low cholesterol, low fat. In the 90s, it was presence of positives. Now you can have calcium in your orange juice. In the 2000s, it was functional foods, your vitamin waters, your antioxidant, palm, wonderful, all that. For the last decade, it's been less processed, real less processed. And it's about time. It's about time for another version of what's good for you. And so we took a look at that and also took a look at our business and our mission of being a food company. Of course, we assessed the market and what's going on, and is there actually a real behavior change that's happening in the market that would suggest this isn't just a fad, it's a trend. And we looked at all of that and said, this is something that we do need to watch, something that we do need to look at. And that's essentially how it went. I can also say that, in terms of the size of the market, I don't think anyone really knows. Anyone who thinks there's a number out there, I'm not sure that, who can know how big it's going to be. But we do know at JBS that we are the biggest protein company, and we will remain the biggest protein company. So whatever it takes to do that, and if plant-based becomes a meaningful part of the protein segment, we'll be there in a big way.
Eric, what do you think? What are the factors that have got you going in this direction?
Well, certainly the folks in this room have had a lot to do with it. Bruce, I think, outlined it pretty well yesterday when I think we've established that health is the underpinnings of the movement, and that's not a new consumer want or desire. Health, convenience, taste, those tend to be like the tried and true. But health is certainly a big piece of it. When you think about the catalysts that have really ignited interest for companies, I certainly think innovation has been at the core of it. Just an amazing, who would have thought some of the things we were talking about yesterday, 3D printing steaks and turning mushrooms into leather and chicken fillets. That's amazing stuff. I can't wait. But then, I think the fast food guys have had a lot to do with bringing it mainstream. And that's the key, I think, for this group, for this industry, that you have to be able to bring it mainstream. And so as the fast food have brought it on and with some scale and made it readily available, it's just allowed it to become part of the vernacular, part of the language. It's no longer a strange thing that's sort of niche-y. It is well accepted, and it takes a lot of the trial barriers out for people that don't want to go into a grocery store and spend $10 on something that nobody in the household's going to eat. So I think the fast food guys are doing us a really good favor in establishing plant-based alternatives, meat alternatives for consumers that are looking for that. And then, importantly, the taste has to be there. We've talked about that a lot, and it is there. People can have it all. They can have the health, they can have the taste, they can have the convenience that plant-based now is affording. So really commend, all the great work and the innovation that many folks in this room have been working on to make this possible.
So, Christy, you talked about the shift from decade to decade, roughly, and people's ideas of what they want from food and what's possible from food. Is there some catalyst here that is driving all of the interest that we're seeing in these products over the last few years?
I could tell you what I think. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't sort of state what I think we are in now, and I don't know what the industry is going to call it yet, but if we've been in real and less processed, what's that next thing? I've been calling it better for all. So not only does it have to be healthy for me, to Eric's point, it's got to be healthier for me. In my opinion, it can't just be perceived healthier, it actually has to be healthier to have the trend really become mainstream. And then secondly, it's got to do something else, something that's better for all. And whether that's environmental sustainability, whether that's animal welfare, whether it's social responsibility, whether it's, there's all these things. We're sort of, as a society, more and more connected. We're more and more aware of our impact on everything outside of our own daily lives. So it has to have multi-components to it in terms of what really is good food. So I do see that. I also think that in terms of what's driving it, you do see a fundamental shift in consumer behavior. So plant-based is, and what started as vegan or vegetarian is now just a restrictive diet or an ethics-driven diet. It's more of a lifestyle now. It is some of those little things you can do on a daily basis to just feel a little better, be a little better to yourself, be a little better to your others. It's turned into the way kind of consumers are treating it now. It's turned into something that's attainable for your everyday consumer, something they can really do and feel good about. And then on top of it, I do think that shifting the category away from kind of frozen processed foods into being right there next to meat, to be a meat analog, a true meat analog in terms of it's refrigerated, right in the fresh set, right next to its counterpart, its animal counterpart, is absolutely key. That's a shift in frame of reference. And when we said, saw Beyond Meat pioneer that and take bold moves to grow the category, that I think is the kind of the spark that ignited, as well as I'd say the QSR availability. I think that's spot on. So you see all these things come together, and you can kind of see why now, and it makes sense in terms of what the future could be.
Any other thoughts, Eric, and why now?
Why now? Got to get in on the ground floor, right? And so we're excited to be doing that. I think our story for why now, really starts with kind of our heritage as a company and how we try to listen to the voices that are out there. Certainly our consumers, our customers, even our adversaries, if you want to include them. And I think when you look at some of the catalysts for our company in particular, why now? We've listened, and when consumers call us and ask us why we have antibiotics in our chickens, we take notice, and so that's why we changed. We took them out of our chicken production. We're 100% no antibiotics ever, and we showed the rest of the industry that it's possible to raise chickens healthy without pumping them full of drugs every day, which is what the industry tends to do to keep them healthy. And so, we show that it was possible. We like to, think of ourselves as a disruptor in the space. We did the same thing with animal care. About 3 years ago, we started with our animal care commitment and began to invite customers, farmers, NGOs, academia into Perdue and talk to them about the things that we were doing and the things that we wanted to do that were based on our animal care commitment. And so we've had 3 of these. The one last year, it was about this time, we have them in the summertime, we asked some of our friends from a number of the NGOs and others, we asked them just, hey, if there's something that you want us to think about, what would that be? And a number of them, in particular, one guy that I think is here, Josh Bulk from Humane Society of the US, stood up and said, you know, it would be great if Perdue started to think about getting into alternative proteins, into plant proteins, because the space is exploding. And, you know, we took note and we're like, you know, okay, we'll think about that. Now, we don't want to give Josh all the credit here because we had been thinking about it, but, you know, he helped nudge us over the goal line a little bit and get even more serious about it. So we started looking at this, and we had a strategy that was about, you know, the 5% vegetarian set that everyone has established is kind of the core, but we were very excited to go after the 95%. You know, the other 95%, the meat eater, the flexitarian, if you will, that 20-30%, but the 95% that were not vegetarian. And so, you know, we chose a strategy that was not to go pure plant, was not to participate in the cell today from an investment standpoint, but to rather make our products very mainstream and available to consumers. One of the universal truths is mom wants her kids to be happy and healthy. And one of the things that doesn't make her kids happy is when they have to eat their vegetables. And the green stuff and the yellow stuff and the orange stuff, that's always left on the plate. And it doesn't tend to make mom very happy either because it's a fight. So we wanted to really work against that pain point. And so we knew that we had to partner with people that are in the space, people like in this room, that would help us get to a blended proposition that gave people, you know, gave consumers the chicken that they love and the vegetable and plant nutrition that they needed, that they wanted. And so we looked around for some, you know, ingredient guys to help us out, and, you know, lo and behold, Josh introduced us to one of his former colleagues in the Better Meat Company, Paul Shapiro, who had exactly what we were looking for that allowed us to jumpstart our development and to really develop products that were perfect for what we were looking for. So we just launched this last week. You know, I'm proud to say that idea was conceived and it's through the birth canal and it's now out into about 7,000 stores as we speak. We're shipping it, and go look for Perdue Chicken Plus because it's all about delivering, you know, chicken that mom has a lot of confidence in, and then giving her family the, you know, vegetable nutrition that they're needing without them even knowing. You know, that's the beautiful thing about it. Kids can break open those nuggets and they will gobble them down thinking they're chicken nuggets. And mom is going to be just, you know, smiling in the background knowing that she's doing right by her family. So thanks to all of you.
Let me ask the audience a question. How many people have been to Decatur, Illinois here? A few. I was down there last week, the annual Farm Progress Show, and a number of farmers, ranchers that I talked to over the course of the day asked me if I'd tried the Impossible Foods burger, the Beyond Meat burger. One woman said that she'd been in the drive-thru of Burger King and wanted to order it, but could not bring herself to do it. They still feel some apprehension. Some of them feel threatened.
Yeah.
I was curious if you both could talk about the cultural change this represents or not for your companies and for your relationship with your farmer and rancher suppliers. Christy?
Mm-hmm. So on the rancher and supplier side, it is something that we think about seriously because we have to. We have a large footprint. JBS USA, we've got relationships with about 26,000 family ranches and farms. And we have an impact of about $18 billion with JBS USA to those family farms. So it's something we take very seriously. At the same time, we as a company have to be nimble and address the consumer trends that are out there so we stay relevant so that, you know, we continue to grow and be the best and be number one. So we see it just like the consumers. We see it as an and, not an or. We continue to focus on our core business, which is animal protein. And I think culture, as well as, I would argue, structure and governance are a major, major topic and needs to be a major, major topic to accelerate plant-based, cell-based, anything you look at in terms of alternative to traditional animal agriculture. For the market to explode, it has to go mainstream. To go mainstream, the big companies have to get in and win. That's just what's going to have to happen. It's just the facts. To do that, there is a lot of conversation going on, I can say, in JBS right now, and has been going on about how best to approach this from, like I said, structure, governance, financials. A lot of the companies that are in the space today are startups or are independents, and they play by different rules than the big companies do. I actually had the same problem before JBS. I was at Kraft running breakthrough innovation for Kraft Foods, and we had the same problem there. You know, if you're competing with a big startup that doesn't require profitability, and can spend a lot in R&D, SG&A, marketing, continuously reinvest in their business, versus a big company that doesn't, it sounds strange to people who maybe haven't lived a corporate life and don't know how these big decisions are made, but it's very difficult to get that financial flexibility as well as agility in the way you make decisions to be able to be as responsive as the startups to new trends. So I won't say much more about that, but I think that, you know, JBS is looking at it perhaps a little bit differently than some of our competition in terms of not only, you know, the product, the marketing, the entry, the channels, but really the structure and governance. What's it going to take to unlock the potential for JBS as well as the consumer and the market to go after this big? Yep.
Yeah. So at Perdue, you know, we are, you know, our best kind of example here is what we're putting into the market today with Perdue Chicken Plus. And I can tell you that Jim Perdue is so excited about this. You know, so at the very top, and our CEO has, Randy Day, has done nothing but support and drive, help us drive this initiative forward. It has been, you know, clear the decks, let's make this happen, and we've been able to get to market, you know, really, really quickly. And thankfully, you know, it's been embraced by consumers and by customers, and with the type of distribution that we're able to pick up with this new launch. I think with the farmer situation, you know, like the JBS crew, you know, we work with family farmers, about 10,000 farmers, I guess. Not you know, we're not in it to get bigger. We want to get better at everything we do. Growth is great, of course, but about 8,500 are grain farmers, and about 2,200 are chicken farmers, and about 800 are hog and cattle. And I think, you know, as I've talked to hundreds of these farmers through our conversations and dialogue and interactions with them, the thing that is probably maybe a little irritating, if that's the sentiment you were getting, is how they're being maybe disparaged a little bit for what they do. They work really, really hard to feed America, to feed the world, and I think we need to cut the farmers some slack, honestly. They're doing the very best that they can to raise animals for food production, but if the consumer and if companies want them to instead raise plants for food production, I think they will be really, really happy to do that for us. So, you know, let's thank our farmers, and if we want them to do something else, you know, let's ask them to do that, and they'll do it.
I wanted to go to some questions if we have time here from the audience, but one last thing before we do so. Can you give a sense to the audience how the investment in these sorts of products and you're putting your R&D engines and so on, how does this speak to or align with the company's sustainability goals?
JBS takes sustainability very seriously. I encourage anyone who's interested to go to our website, jbssa.com. We have goals just like every major company. We publish them. And you know, I think the most important thing there is that sustainability, JBS looks at it with three factors. It's actually broader than environment. Environment is there, absolutely, but it's not the only one. We've got environmental, we've got economic, and we've got social impact. So really, to make a business viable and to continue to support the world in all those ways, we'll do whatever it takes to basically meet our goals there. So, when you look at something like plant-based or cell-based or anything like that, it fits perfectly in what we want to do and we want to achieve. So, we haven't really had any friction or issues on that topic, particularly in JBS to date.
Aaron?
Yeah, so similar perspective. We have a really smart guy leading our sustainability efforts. I hope he's not watching. It'll go to his head if he hears that. But he is a smart guy and has really been helping us establish our goals and drive towards lower greenhouse gases and carbon footprint and water footprint, as well as what we do with our waste that some of our facilities generate. And I think, good news is chicken has a pretty low carbon footprint, and there's a lot of various carbon footprint calculators out there, but chicken tenders have lower carbon footprint than a veggie burrito, lower carbon footprint than a tofu and spinach salad, as an example. So chicken's on the light side relative to other animal proteins, but certainly as we introduce more plants into our products and grow that, it's going to help us take pressure off the environment, and that's an exciting thing for us that we're really, again, committed to. It can't do it on its own. We're going to make progress with our animal production. That's going to be the biggest factor in getting those sustainability goals, but the plant-based endeavors will certainly help us achieve that.
I'm looking to the questions from the audience here. There's a number that have come in that relate to sort of the scale of the investment in these alternative products relative to your established businesses in meat, and maybe you can speak a little bit to how you prioritize it with versus your established businesses as you go forward with these newer things, and whether or not that speaks to the sort of company's commitment to developing these alternative products.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll start, I guess, if you want me to.
Sure.
I got the look, like you take this one first. So, again, Perdue's a private company, family-owned, and it's always been our deal to do what's right versus, chase the fast nickel. I think I said that right. But in terms of how we're approaching this space, we are really excited that we've been able to fold it right into what we do today. Because we're putting a blended product that's going to be highly accessible, that is going to be shelved right next to our regular chicken nuggets, that are going to be priced the same as our regular chicken nuggets on a bag basis, and we're really giving tremendous value. And we're investing with our partners in that respect to make that happen. We are starting with frozen, fully cooked products, with the ground products, but we're looking to extend that into other places across the grocery store in which we compete as well. I think it's a real testament to our conviction behind this. We're putting our money where our mouth is. Perdue Chicken Plus is going to consume about half of our total marketing investment next year. So we're talking, fully integrated linear television campaign, all the digital online video advertising, print advertising, consumer promotions, podcasts. You name it. We're going to launch this initiative with a great fanfare, and we believe it's super important because it will help to establish this as an expectation that can help mom, meet the needs of her meal making with something that, again, tastes great and gives her family that familiar, form and the nutrition that they need. So, it's hard to imagine, a greater statement that certainly in the near term, where, as we just make that big play to establish this initiative and really, with the mainstream consumer, have it become something that's accepted and established.
I would say for JBS, I'd look at not only the tangible investment that will be made in terms of dollars and people and resources, I also think the intangible. I mentioned before that there's a lot of conversation and care being taken right now into not only what, but how to enter the market. And it's a very serious discussion. JBS is not choosing to follow the pack and just kind of jump in quickly with something. Instead, we're being very strategic, very pragmatic, and I expect that when we get in the market, it won't be a toe in the pool. We will cannonball.
There's a number of questions that have related also to what we were talking about a moment ago, the ongoing relationship between your companies and the farmers and ranchers. And some of the folks in the audience are curious, do you discuss with them ways to transition to being suppliers for these newer products? Is that yet too early? Or does this initiative, the investment and research into plant-based or alternative products, speak to any longer-term changes in how they raise poultry or raise livestock?
I think it's a little early to be talking about transition. I think there's a tremendous growth potential for this space, but the reality is right now, plant-based at retail anyway is about $1 billion, whereas meat's $90 billion. So, we're not there yet. I have seen other models work really well when companies can speak and work upstream and work with suppliers and partners and families. I heard a great talk by I think it was the head of purchasing for Kashi on how they were able to do that and transition to organic. And I could see a place where in the future JBS would get there. We absolutely are in service to our farmers and our suppliers, and we'll do anything and everything it takes to continue to have a strong JBS family in our supplier base. So if that means transitioning at some point in the future, perhaps, but we're certainly not there yet.
I think we'll see it coming as well. I think as demand requires, supply will become available. There's certainly ample today against the major types of products that are going into these, major types of ingredients that are going into these products, soy, the pea, wheat, gluten, obviously being some big core protein ones, and then there's new alternatives come to life. I think we have a long-standing tradition of you grow it, we will buy it, and we're going to honor that commitment as demand changes for our farmers.
Can I ask a quick, I don't mean to paint all of the farmers and ranchers with the same brush. Do you ever have any interest from these folks asking you, is there a way that I can supply for these sorts of products?
Well, I think it's early right now. I haven't heard that specifically, but I think a good parallel is as we've really put commitment behind our animal care initiatives, we have more and more farmers that are wanting to sign up for the most progressive animal farming practices that we have. So for organic production, for free-range production, for gestation-free and confinement-free pork, farmers are clamoring to raise animals, the way that they should be raised. That's part of our principle with our animal care initiatives. We want chickens to be chickens, we want pigs to be pigs, we want cows to be cows, and farmers, they love that idea, right? Because they love animals, they love what they do. They understand that they will be harvested for the purpose of human food, but they're passionate about what they do. So I think a similar opportunity exists for plant. If we collectively convince farmers that they want to sign up and be part of the movement, I think that will come.
Christy, any other thoughts? Otherwise,
I can say I haven't heard that happen yet in terms of a rancher wanting to raise soybeans yet, but maybe it'll come. You never know.
Not to continue to sort of channel the thought process of the ranchers, but the Journal did a story last year in which we spoke to a fellow who I think raised cattle in Nebraska, and he'd at the time expressed surprise seeing, I think it was Beyond Meat's products in, as he said it, our meat case. And we talked earlier about the sort of real estate of the grocery store and it being very strategic and there being these different territories. And I'd be curious if you both could offer any sort of thought on, where the meat alternative products wind up or where they should be, where you want them to be, or how it might affect how people perceive them. Christy?
Yeah, I've kind of spoken to that a little bit earlier, but in my mind, it's a bit of a three-phase approach. So obviously, the category was born frozen, a little bit refrigerated as well, but in a separate set. And now we're in this sort of precipice point where you've got some products right in the meat case, in our case. It's all of our cases. So I do think, as I said, that's the frame of reference shift right there, that one move, as well as the consumers opening up and thinking of plant-based as the next better for you, health, good food trend. I think for me, the primary growth, as I would project out, will be in the refrigerated set next to the animal counterparts. That's where I think it's going to go. There's a lot more I could say about, and what does that mean for JBS's core business, and what does that mean for the meat buyers, and what does that mean, et cetera, et cetera. But I think just purely from the consumer, kind of the consumer standpoint, and if you were looking to maximize the plant-based category specifically, that's where it will go. I could see growth then returning back to frozen, but you look at the numbers right now, the refrigerated set with Beyond Meat in there and others joining, that's where the growth is right now.
Eric, what do you think?
Well, I'm smiling because you can't see it, but the moderator for the next panel is late, and we're giving you more time. So I'm like, geez, really? So awesome.
I got way more.
What the heck?
Don't worry.
All right, okay. I may have to take my jacket off. Anybody got a plant-based beverage out there? So let's see. So I think this is the key to making plant-based more relevant and eventually cell-based, if it gets there, more relevant, is showing up where people are buying their number one source of protein, and that's in the meat case. And if you're buying frozen food, in the frozen meat area, and that's a key part of our strategy, is that we need to establish these products in adjacencies to the meat analogs. That's what's exciting about our Chicken Plus initiative, Perdue Chicken Plus initiative. We are not going to be next to Morningstar competing for your business. We are going to be in the frozen food meat case competing for Tyson's business. So, I think we're gonna do a good job against that. But it's just gonna crack it open, I think, in a really, really big way and make this product mainstream. And the same thing goes for the refrigerated meat case. Beyond Meat, I think, has paved the way, pioneered the way. I will tell you, it is an extremely high hurdle to maintain shelf space in that set. So the product's got to turn. You got to get that demand, and that's the brilliant thing about the fast food guys doing a lot of the heavy lifting and taking those trial hurdles out. People will see these products, and they will say, "Okay, I've tried it at Carl's Jr. or at BK or wherever, and it's going to be okay, and my family's going to enjoy it, and I'm going to feel better about it." So I think that absolutely is going to be the key to success for the plant-based and the cell-based and the meat alternative industry, to show up where people are buying meat today.
One thing I wanted to get to that we talked about a bit last week was the economics of producing and the price points of these. If we stick with our meat case, it's your meat case, everybody, remember. But there's this idea that because the plant-based products or maybe the plant-based part of your blended product requires fewer inputs in the sense of grain, in the sense of water, logistics, and so on, that inevitably this will make these products cheaper to both produce and to sell.
Yeah.
Is that the case, or is there more nuance to it than that, Eric?
Yeah, it's a little tricky. I'll try to articulate this for people that may not be in the meat industry and understand some of the economics involved with how things work. But for a blended product, because we're using really a byproduct of what people are paying the most for, and that's the whole muscle chicken breast. And in the case of steaks, or in beef, it's the steaks, and what do you do with the rest? Well, you make it into hamburger. So those byproducts, you got to do something with them, and it's great meat. It's whole, or I should say it's white meat, and so we grind that up, the trim, if you will, and we put that into nuggets. But you're not going to get the premium that you would for a chicken breast as you would for the ground breast meat. And believe it or not, the plant-based ingredient set that's part of our recipe is considerably more expensive than that, call it byproduct, even though it's a great byproduct. The market is much lower for that. So it actually is, it's a premium in the chicken world. And we've priced our products smartly, and we've right-sized the bag and given consumers a great value so that for them it's just, am I buying a bag of regular chicken nuggets or am I buying the chicken plus nuggets? And I think that will be easy for them. But it is more expensive today. I think as you work your way up, though, from a blended standpoint in particular, to higher price proteins like turkey and pork and beef, the barrier is probably going to be a little less. As an example, for our ground turkey breast meat product, we actually flip it. So the ingredient set that's plant-based is less expensive than the meat that we're grinding up into that product. So I think it could help there. I think one of the things I want to impart on the people here that are working on the next generation of products is there is such great progress against the ground part of the meat set, the meat offering, but the lion's share is still the whole muscle. And you've got to address the whole muscle side of alternative meat, alternative protein. Because people are still going to, they're going to want a steak, they're going to want a pork chop, they're going to want a chicken breast. And if you don't have something that's a suitable alternative, a great tasting, better alternative that can compete with those, what it's going to do, it's going to take pressure off of the ground side of things from a total animal utilization standpoint. And what is it going to do, right? It'll take pressure off. It will increase the availability and the excess that is there, and that will actually push the prices of that byproduct down. So that will make it even harder for plant-based to catch up to a lower price that is going to be there for ground-type products. So I think it's a really important issue that you think about. For meat companies, you have to sell the whole animal to make the math work. You can't just sell the premium parts. You have to sell everything, and it's a principle that keeps meat companies in business, and it's a principle that as plant and cell-based folks, you've got to really embrace that and help meat companies get better at delivering the whole utilization.
Yep, that's true. Chicken math. It's true. If you guys don't know how chicken is priced, it's totally crazy. Totally crazy math. Anyway, right now I would say my comment to that is I don't see it yet. I can't in my mind picture how plant-based products are going to be cheaper than animal-based product analogs. I don't yet see it. Doesn't mean it won't happen in the future, but I don't know if there's an answer yet to that. You look at the ingredient lines, you look at the complexity of mixing, all the different cost of goods sold, the unique processes, and we're in the early days of what the products are. They're only going to get better and better and better. I don't know yet if that's going to go up or down in price, but I don't yet see. I do think Cell-based meat today, obviously, is incredibly expensive. But if you took a really long view on that, maybe someday, because look at the ingredient line. There it is, you know. And if I could see that potentially long-term being more of a price play. And then the plant-based, you know, again, I don't yet see that.
To go with that a step further, as you all deepen your involvement in this category or work on more of this stuff, do you bring in people from outside that are specialists in this type of thing, or are you able to sort of harness your existing expertise? Is there a lot of overlap as you develop these plant-based parts of the business?
So I can say for JBS, it's a bit of both. So we certainly do have people that we trust, that we talk to, that are helping us. But at the end of the day, what we're looking at is more so to replicate meat. You know, we are a meat company. So we have a lot of expertise internally that we're leveraging to get there. So it's a bit of a combination in how we're looking at it. But you know, at the end of the day, I think we'll be able to come up with some pretty compelling products that taste great and are able to do everything the consumer wants in terms of a product performance.
I'd add to that a little bit. You know, meat science is not the same as plant science, and we have some wonderful technologists, but we have folks that, you know, the basic building blocks of protein and whatnot. Meat is different, you know, in terms of how it is processed and how we turn it into edible, you know, meat. I think inevitably, you know, our approach right now from a blended is we can pretty easily partner with great partners to get to where we are aspiring in the near term. As you go more to a pure based thing, there is some good know-how, but I think we could use a whole lot more, especially as that innovation happens and advancement happens. Mostly on the development side. I think from a manufacturing, you know, we're always looking for, you know, great ways to use existing capital and capacity that we have. But as you know, as required, it will obviously need a little bit more investment. Go to market, I think is well in hand in what we do every day, you know, in terms of the sales and marketing of these products. So it's more on the development and the manufacturing that we'd need to partner and/or, you know, place more investment.
As Christy observed earlier, no one knows for sure what the size of all of this business is going to be eventually. It's like we don't know for sure when our panel was supposed to have ended. I think we're done now. So if you could recognize your panelists here for rolling with the elastic time frame. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.